What's up guys, Mike here, and today we are back with the what if matchups. So today we're taking a look at who would win, the all-time 2000s team or the all-time 1990s team. And before we jump into this, let me tell you how I decided each roster. So it doesn't go by when a player was drafted or anything like that. A player's team is decided in the decade in which he had the most success. So for instance, Jordan was drafted in the 80s, but it was the 90s where he won 6 championships and 5 MVPs. So he's on the all-time 90s team. And if you want an explanation for how the winner is decided, stick around to the end, I will explain. And so with that said, let's take a look at this matchup. Taking the ball for the 2000s, we have none other than Steve Nash. Nash is of course known for his back-to-back MVPs in the 2000s and for leading the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns for the later half of the decade. His leadership and pass-first style of play will be perfect for this all-star environment. At shooting guard, we have the Black Mamba Kobe Bryant. Though drafted in the 1990s, the 2000s were where Kobe built his resume as the second best shooting guard in NBA history. He won 4 championships, won his only MVP, and even scored a staggering 81 points in a single game. Kobe will provide the 2000s with a man who can carry the scoring load, and spoiler alert, he will be matched up against Michael Jordan, giving us a dream matchup that we can only find in simulations like this. The starting small forward for the 2000s may come as a bit of a surprise, but he really shouldn't be. In terms of pure talent, I would argue that no other player was as good as Tracy McGrady in his prime other than Kobe and LeBron James. But as I said, LeBron would be considered a man of the 2010s because he's won a majority of his awards in that era. So T-Mac earns a starting role and gives the 2000s a man who can do just about everything on a basketball court. The 4 for the 2000s is Tim Duncan, and there should be no questioning this selection. Duncan won 3 championships in the 2000s, earned 2 MVPs, and is one of the most consistent offensive and defensive players the game has ever seen. With a roster full of all-stars, Duncan is the perfect star to complement his teammates. And at center, we have the Diesel Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq's best years came when he was paired with his teammate on this decade team, Kobe Bryant. On the Lakers, Shaq won his only MVP and won 3 straight NBA titles. While he certainly left LA with some bad blood with Cobes, the two seem to have patched things up and surely will put the past behind them to defeat the best the 90s has to offer. And taking a look at the bench, you can tell right away that the 2000s are very, very deep. The backup point guard is Jason Kidd, another leader who will have no problems distributing the ball and making sure everyone on the court is happy. The other backup guard is NBA MVP Allen Iverson. AI is used to playing with subpar teammates and will be ecstatic to finally show off his scoring prowess surrounded by stars. At the backup 3 and 5, we have NBA champions Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Pierce and KG proved they can team up and win with other stars during their stint together in Boston, and I'm sure they will have no problem showing off their remarkable talents in this game. And finally, the final backup is Dirk Nowitzki at power forward. Dirk is clearly one of the top talents of the last 20 years and won his only MVP during the 2000s. If Team 2000's bench ever stalls on offense, expect Dirk to get things going with his signature fall-away jumpers. And opposing Team 2000, we of course have the all-time 90s team. Starting for the all-time 90s at point guard, we have the most consistent player in NBA history, John Stockton. Stockton was never an MVP, was never an NBA champion, but he was the best point guard of his era. His remarkable consistency will sure to be very valuable in this game, and expect him to get everyone involved early on. At the 2, Michael Jordan faces off against his nemesis that never was, Kobe Bryant. Because here's the thing, throughout Jordan's prime, he really never had a serious competitor at the shooting guard spot. Sure, early on Clyde Drexler tried, but then Jordan vanquished him with the shrug game and it was smooth sailing from there. With that said, Kobe will provide Michael with an extremely interesting challenge, and we will soon see if Jordan can back up his reputation as the best basketball player to ever live. The small forward of the 90s is Jordan's teammate, Scottie Pippen. Now, Charles Barkley could definitely make a case here for the starting nod, but we're going to take his scoring off the bench. Pippen gives this squad some incredible wing defense and has proven throughout his career to be one of the best teammates of all time. So there is no doubt he will be able to blend into this starting lineup seamlessly. The power forward of the 90s should be a surprise to no one. Again, the pairing of Stockton and Malone never produced a championship, but Karl Malone did win 2 of his own MVPs in 1997 and 1999. Malone was also a first-team All-NBA selection every single year in this decade, something that no other player can claim, and he will certainly prove to be a force down low in this matchup. And at center, we have Hakeem Hakeem Olajuwon. It's been said that due to his incredible footwork and athleticism at the center spot, there will never be another player like Hakeem. And to be sure, the Dream was certainly one of the best basketball players of all time. A one-time MVP and two-time champion, Hakeem won his awards when Jordan retired briefly for baseball, but in this game, with Jordan as his teammate, he won't have to worry about beating MJ. Instead, the matchup between himself and Shaq will certainly be one of the biggest subplots in this game. Off the bench for the 90s, Gary Payton will give this team a nice change of pace, especially on the defensive end. At the 2, Clyde Drexler will give this team a nice scoring option when Jordan rests. And speaking of scoring, the backup squad's offense will run through Charles Barkley. Chuck can score from the outside, can bulldoze for points on the inside, and will be sure to give the 90s a nice rebounding edge. As for the backup big men, Patrick Ewing and David Robinson will both take turns subbing into the game when Malone and Hakeem get tired. You really can't go wrong with either of these Hall of Fame players, and the 90s will be sure to not miss a beat when their backups come into the game. And so, with the team set, the only thing left to do is play the game. The game begins with a tip-off win for the 90s, and the ball is quickly given to John Stockton. Stockton surveys the defense, hits an open Scottie Pippen, and Pippen knocks down a medium-range jumper to start it off. Moments later, after a defensive stop, Michael Jordan runs the ball down the court and makes a tough contested three-pointer. This gives the 90s a fast 5-0 lead, but Team 2000 quickly gets into a rhythm, as the team finds success in the post through Shaquille O'Neal. First, Shaq tosses in a short post hook, then Nash finds him for a thunderous dunk. Not to seem overmatched, on the opposite end, Hakeem finds an open lane to the rim and shows off his own dunking ability. And with 7 minutes left in the quarter, the 90s lead by 5 points and Team 2000 calls a timeout. However, this timeout does nothing to slow down the 90s. Jordan begins to put a real mark on this game, rebounding a Team 2000 miss and scoring in transition. The next time he touches the ball, he puts it on the floor and knocks down a mid-range jumper. Capping off his mini run, he draws in the defense, finds an open Karl Malone near the basket, and Malone finishes around the rim to extend his team's lead to 11. The last 3 minutes of the quarter find both teams struggling on offense, though Team 2000 is able to knock down a few shots, most notably a Paul Pierce three-pointer and an Allen Iverson drive. And the first quarter ends with the 90s holding a 6-point lead. Starting off the second quarter, David Robinson and Patrick Ewing prove their worth off the bench with back-to-back baskets around the rim. As if to get back at them, Dirk shows off a different style of big man play on the other side of the court and drains his signature fall-away jumper. Then he spots up and drains a 3 off a sweet pass from Jason Kidd. This 3 is quickly matched from the glove, Gary Payton, who is then subbed out and replaced by the starter, John Stockton. Stockton continues right where Payton left off, knocking his own jumper down before feeding Michael Jordan with an open mid-range jumper. This gives the 90s a double-digit lead, but things quickly change. First, Shaq throws down a huge dunk off a lob from Kobe. Then Kobe steps back and drains a 3. And to cap off this comeback run, T-Mac Isos rises up and drains a 3 of his own. From there, the two teams trade baskets and misses for the rest of the quarter, and the 90s take a 3-point lead into the second half. The second half continues to showcase some of the incredible talent of some of the best players in NBA history. Shaq continues to bang time and time in the post, scoring on several offensive possessions. Jordan begins to isolate, making his own way to the rim for athletic finishes before drawing in some double teams and setting up Malone for some short jumpers. With that said, in this quarter, no team can quite gain an advantage, though this isn't for lack of trying. Kobe in particular has a big third quarter, hitting several fall-away jumpers and picking up some easy baskets in transition. Duncan also begins to get going, scoring on some putbacks before posting up, faking a fall-away jumper and scoring around the basket. Like I said though, no team gains an advantage, as Kobe and Duncan's points are matched by Pippen and Robinson. Pippen scores his points on drives to the basket, and Robinson of course collects his around the rim through a variety of dunks and layups. And so the third quarter comes and goes and sees no change in the score, which means the fourth quarter begins with a 3-point lead by the 90s. This lead is quickly extended by Charles Barkley, who has been quiet so far. Chuck posts up, fakes, then bangs in the post for a basket that begins his own personal run. 8 points later, Barkley finishes this run on an isolation play, knocking down a jumper that gives the 90s a 7-point lead. This lead is quickly cut into by Kevin Garnett, who knocks down a mid-range jumper, and Steve Nash, who hits a floater off of a nice drive. But then, Stockton and Malone check back into the game and everything changes. Time and time again in the fourth quarter, Stockton and Malone run pick and roll after pick and roll, and Team 2000 can't stop them. Stockton hits hits a mid-range jumper. Malone scores on multiple feeds from Stockton. Then Jordan finds himself open as the defense focuses on Karl Malone. Team 2000 tries to match this huge offensive outburst, but they struggle at the worst time possible. Nash misses some threes, T-Mac can't finish on some drives, and the 90s break the game wide open. With 2 minutes left, a monster dunk for Hakeem ends a monster run, and the 90s find themselves up by 17. Kobe and Shaq pick up some garbage baskets at the end of the game, but it's too late. The 90s win 111 to 99, and looking at the box score, you can see the scoring was pretty balanced. Shaq had a big game, Jordan played well, and David Robinson had a big scoring output off the bench. The heroes, though, were Stockton and Malone, who led the 90s offense and broke the game wide open in the fourth. And so thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and like I said, I would explain how I simulate these games. So I simulate them 100 times on whatifsports.com. It's like a simulation site where you could put in a bunch of different players and simulate all sorts of historic matchups. So like I said, I simulated 100 times, and the all-time 90s team won 67 of these matchups, which in all the what if games I've done was actually the biggest blowout in any of them. And I feel like some people are going to comment, why was LeBron not on Team 2000? Well, if you look at his success, he had all of his success after 2010. So if he was going to be on a decade team, I would say he would be on Team 2010. And other than that, guys, make sure to leave this video a like and let me know down below what teams you want to see me do next. Those comments definitely influence future videos, and this matchup was actually a comment at one point. Other than that, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. I do basketball videos like this. I look at NBA history. I look at NBA conspiracies. Do a whole lot here. I would love to have you. And as always, have an awesome day, my dudes, and cue the music.
Time on